Hello friends. This is going to be a bit of a hybrid video because after I did my video about the controversy over the book Shy Girl and whether it was AI written, based on a lot of the conversation in the comments, I made a video kind of talking over some of the points people bring up a lot when we're talking about AI and novel writing. So I have that video, but in the meantime, before I had a chance to post it, the author world blew up a little bit with a graph that was recently released, at least I think it was recently released, showing that the amount of ebooks published on Amazon every month has gone from 100,000 a month to 300,000 a month as of the end of 2025 going into 2026. So I want you to sit with that number a minute and just think about it. We were already getting 100,000 new books a month published on Amazon. That's a lot, right? That's a lot of books. Now, obviously, some of these are going to be translations, some of them are going to be shorts, but any way you slice it, that is a lot of books. That's more books than we need. So most of those books are not getting read. But now we're talking that this number has tripled. And it's pretty reasonable to assume that the reason that it's tripled is because of AI, because the growth chart pretty well tracks with the rise of AI usage, and we know that people are publishing a lot of AI books on Amazon. So now we've got 300,000 books every month on Amazon, of which 2/3 are AI written. In the same vein, there was also a lot of chagrin. I'm not sure why there was so much talk about this particular book. I'm not sure if it's like the most successful AI novel. I don't even know if it is an AI novel. I haven't read it or bought it or anything, obviously. Definitely not my genre. And it's also 1,100 pages, so I will not be reading it. But for whatever reason, everybody freaked out about this book. Not the Firefighter Alpha's Bookish Mate. I cannot remember this title for the life of me. This book was released at the end of February and is still ranked number 237 in the Amazon store. It is book 29 of 72 in a series called Possessive Small Town Alpha Kings by J.K. Serena and Lyra Flux. Neither of these authors have an author page on Amazon or any information about them. This 72 book series appears to have started in September of 2025, and it seems to be doing very well. So I want to talk for a minute about this situation. Now, again, I have not read these books, but I can certainly see why people are assuming that they're AI because no one can write 72 books between September and May of 2026. I'm a pretty fast writer, and I've known writers faster than me, but I don't know anyone who has written 72 books in that amount of time, especially because some of these books are very long. Now, they are purported to be by some different authors, but there's also no information about any of these authors at all. So, now a couple thoughts about this. One, you might be thinking, if you are a proponent of AI, well, that just goes to show. AI books are selling, people are enjoying them. AI is the future. It's going to take over literature. End of story. Well, one thing we don't know is, are real people reading these books? We've already had bots abusing Kindle Unlimited in the past, and it's pretty easy to do. And Amazon has had to do various things to crack down on bots taking advantage of their Kindle Unlimited program over time. So there's a fairly safe bet that at least some of the people reading these books are not real people. If they are all real people, well, that is definitely a concern for the romance market. And it's aggravating, infuriating to see AI books ranking on the charts. Even writing books like Not the Firefighter's Alpha Bookish, Not the Firefighter Alpha's Bookish Mate. I still feel like that should be written by a real person. If I want some nodding firefighter alphas, damn it, I want them to be written by a real person. But maybe not everyone does. If you are the kind of person that's going to pick up a book with this sort of title, this is not the same experience as being like, oh man, I really need to make sure that I read Octavia Butler. There are different priorities that we have as readers, and some of those may be able to be fulfilled by AI for some readers. I am not denying that, even though I don't like it. But I think that AI is going to have a lot harder time replacing the itch to like connect with humanity and like expand your mind and have some kind of idea that's like, oh wow, this book really made me think, it's really beautifully written, etc. But let's keep our focus on commercial fiction. Nevertheless, is this a threat to commercial fiction? I don't know. It's changing very quickly. I will say, looking at 300,000 books a month being published, it's very hard to believe that those would sell without some kind of like scam behavior going on, because how are you going to get visibility? How are these AI books going to get visibility except with keywords releasing super fast and some kind of like scammy marketing practices or abuse of the Kindle Unlimited program? I feel like at some point Amazon is either going to have to crack down on that, or they're going to start getting more upset customers because Kindle Unlimited is going to be so flooded by AI books that it's going to be hard to find books that have that individual touch. So there's going to be evolution, and I don't know what it is or how it will work or what it will be, but I do know that all 200,000 of those AI books are not going to be visible on Kindle Unlimited. The scam is not going to work for very long if the plan is to release 200,000 extra books every month and then get Kindle Unlimited page reads to make money off of them. It's the math. It doesn't work. It's not feasible. So something's going to have to crack. I know some people think that Amazon themselves they're just going to like put out AI books. They're going to cut out authors entirely. I think that would just be very perilous for them, because in the midst of all this discussion, do we like AI? Do we hate AI? Where is it going? Is it going to replace books? Is it going to replace creativity? I sometimes get people defending AI, saying that it's going to be better than people. It's going to take over art. We can't stop it. I agree that it's probably impossible to stop elements of AI usage in creative work, and that in the long run might be okay. Even though I don't like it, I'm that prime kind of grumpy elder millennial woman who just doesn't want anything to do with this shit. But just on a realistic level, it's probably here. Some people are going to keep using it, and some of those works that use it are going to be liked. But as an appreciator, as a person reading a book, choosing a book, I just have to ask, what are we doing? Why do you pick up a book? What makes you love a book? What makes you remember a book? What makes you choose a book? And if every book on Amazon is AI, what is that going to do to you as the reader? What are you going to feel about the books you're reading if none of them are written by actual humans? That is not going to be sustainable. It's going to be a miserable experience. And I, for one, would just probably not even use Amazon anymore. Some people who just need those firefighter alphas, however they come, might stay and might be happy with those books. But most of us, even a lot of the like sort of silly romance books that really pop off and do well, do so because there's something very unique and memorable about them. So I still think in the long run, it's going to be hard to replace human creativity. Aside from the fact, of course, the AI was trained. Let's not forget, AI was trained on all of us writers, all of our works. It stole our works, which my books were involved in the lawsuit. Unfortunately, most of my pen name books I did not pay to copyright because it's expensive, especially if you write really fast and you have a lot of books to reckon with. So I could have, I'm sure they stole all my books, but I'm only getting compensated for 5 of them. Nevertheless, if that lawsuit goes through as scheduled, I should be getting like $9,000 in compensation for stealing my books. But you know what I'm not getting is AI to not continue to use my books, all of our books. They're still using it. So the only reason the AI is good at what it does is because it stole from all of our human minds. I mean, at least the kind of AI we're talking about here. I know there's different usages for AI, different types of AI. I'm only talking about the writer side of things, you know. So as a reader, if I start feeling like all books sound the same and they're all written by AI and they don't have a lot of depth or difference to them, I'm probably not going to use that platform anymore. I'm probably going to try to find a more curated space to find my books. And I don't think that I'll be alone in that. Inevitably, at some point, I might read a book that has AI involved and I won't even know, and the book will still be good, because I do think there are going to be cases where people are using AI and they're still putting enough of their human stamp on it that we don't even notice, and it's still a good piece of art in the end. That also makes me sad, but I also acknowledge it's probably true. But I do think AI is going to struggle to replicate a lot of types of books and like the best books. Although not the firefighter alpha's bookish mate is selling well, this is not going to be a book anyone's going to remember in a year. It is not going to be topping any lists. It is not going to be a book like Ice Planet Barbarians or Morning Glory Milking Farm. Books with premises that, you know, they don't sound like high art, but are the kind of book that you might remember for years and have a hard copy on your shelf. So far, most of the books I've seen accused of being AI have also been very forgettable. Doesn't mean that people don't read forgettable books all the time and have since time immemorial, but so far, we're not seeing a lot of like true AI slop encroaching on more literature spaces. And I don't know, this could change. And I hate even saying this because, again, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to differentiate like certain types of books are art and certain types are not. I hope it's clear that you know that I do think that even some very commercial ideas can be also a valid, memorable, impactful piece of art. And when I read a book, that's really what I'm looking for. And I read so many different genres from the highbrow to the lowbrow, but I'm looking for that book that leaves an impact, makes me think about something a little differently. But what is scary is what kind of impact is having 200,000 extra books on the market every month going to do to every author. And you know, whether you're using AI or not, this is going to affect your visibility. So if you're thinking that AI is this magic bullet to get your book done and out there and get people reading it, even if you love it and you love using it, you are going to be painfully affected by this glut. We all are. It is contributing to just the mass of content clogging up the works. So it is worth keeping an eye on, and it is worth being concerned about. With that in mind, I'm going to flip over to the other video that I made that's just addressing some of these AI related points individually. So this one argument in favor of AI writing keeps coming up on the channel whenever I do a video about AI writing, which is AI writing is bad, but so is a lot of other writing. So what does it matter? If readers like it, what does it matter if it's bad? And that has been bothering me. I've been mulling over it for a couple weeks, you know, not all the time, but just in the background. It kind of keeps nagging at me. And when I was researching my recent video on the Shy Girl AI controversy, it occurred to me, I was reading the samples of both Shy Girl and Mia Ballard's first book. People have been suggesting that both of her books might have been in large part AI generated. And as I was reading the samples, I do think that it's important that as readers and writers, people in the book community, we're very careful before we accuse people of using AI to write, because it was trained on us. So inevitably, some people are going to have style overlap with AI. But I've dabbled in using AI chat just a little bit, just to see like, what does it do? What does it sound like? How does it work? Because I've been doing, you know, I want to know how it works a little bit before I start to criticize it. And after a while, you start to realize that AI has kind of this style, and you start to pick up on that style when you see it. There are certain patterns and words and just this style of writing that it has. I suspect certain authors are using AI to like fill in their descriptive passages to streamline their work. Like, we're not just talking about people who are like generating an entire novel with AI. I am starting to see more novels have that AI description quality to them. And I can understand the temptation to some degree because, sure, a lot of times when I'm writing a book, I fill in the descriptions later. It's not the most exciting part to write for me. However, in the end, I do want to think about my own descriptions. I want to give it my own flavor, my own voice. I like taking that time to fill in the descriptions. It's just that while I'm in the middle of writing the first draft, it often kind of bogs things down. So if you're trying to write to market, I can totally see how people might think, oh, you know what? I could just skip this whole description step and have AI do it for me. And AI style, it likes certain words, it likes certain phrases. It tends to say a lot without saying anything interesting. Like, it just doesn't have a human mind behind it. And I was thinking, so, what is the difference between this and someone who's just not the best writer? Because AI is not, it's like on the surface, it's not the worst writer either. It often sounds like someone who is kind of okay at commercial writing, but also is a little bit of like a pretentious college student is how I keep thinking of it. Again, very kind of flowery, a little too many words to say what it's trying to say and just not really conveying as much as it could be. So I was reading the opening to me and Ballard's first novel, which people have also suggested might be AI writing. And again, I am not trying to witch hunt anybody. I do feel quite certain that some authors are being accused of AI when they haven't. But if you want to know why she in particular is being accused of it, there's a bazillion other videos about it, including one I did. So I'm not going to get too deep into that. But one line really stuck out to me, which was, she was the kind of friend who didn't need to fill silences. Her presence alone was enough. Quiet, yes, but her stillness was the sort that commanded attention. Now, when I was playing around with ChatGPT a little bit, and it likes to give you compliments, like tell you like, oh yes, I have rendered your passage in the style. I asked it to write in my own style. My friend and I were both playing around with like asking it to write like us in theory, because it should technically have pulled all of our books from the internet. So it should know how we write. And it's like, oh yes, I have rendered this passage in the style of Lydia Foxglove. And I swear that it said something really similar to this. Something about like quiet with stillness that commanded attention. Like, I feel like I've read this sentence before when we were doing this exercise. I can't remember if it was my writing, or if it was her writing, but we were both kind of doing this. And by the way, it did not write like me at all. It did not know my style or hers. It just spat out the same voice that it always does. Like, there's a little bit of variation, but it tends to just always sound like itself. It always sounds like the AI.
Disheveled editing Lydia and Reinhardt here. I thought, to be fair, since it has been months since me and my friend were messing around with the AI, I should try it again, see if it's gotten any better. So I used both ChatGPT and Claude. I asked it to rewrite a passage of my writing in the style of 3 different writers who have very different styles. And although all 3 samples sounded a little different from each other, they all very much sounded like AI. Like, more than anything, much more than they sounded like the authors that I was asking it to emulate, because I picked authors I was very familiar with. And so to me, it has not gotten any better at having like individual voice. So that's where we're at with that. I just wanted to be fair to the AI overlords.
And it occurred to me, the problem with this writing is that it's not just that the writing is bad. It's like if all the bad writing in the world was written by one person who could mix it up a little, but ultimately was still one person. Like, if you go and you're like, I just want some ridiculous, tropey, smutty, whatever book, you might not be expecting that much of it, but imagine if every single one of those books was written by the same author. Like, if E.L. James released 50 Shades of Grey, And then every single book like that, every dark romance ever written, ever after, was written by E.L. James. At that point, it's not just about being bad. It's about it being repetitive. It's the same person writing over and over and over. The same little ticks, the same little words they like to use, the same little pattern of sentences that they prefer. You're always going to encounter the same writer no matter where you turn. And I realized this is the vibe that AI is giving me. It's like readable, but it also feels like, okay, the same person is writing this book as that other AI book that I just looked at. And now authors are starting to, in some cases, alter their style so that they won't be accused of being AI. I myself have found that I haven't been using as many M dashes because they're notorious for AI loving them. And now when I put an M dash in, even though I really don't think anyone's going to think my writing is AI, there's just this little like awareness when I include an M dash, like, which means ultimately AI will start training on newer books, maybe with less M dashes. AI will start using less M dashes. It will tweak its style. It might get better at imitating different styles. Part of this is we don't fully know how good AI is going to get in the future at imitating different types of writing. But at present, every time I've seen someone accused of using AI, or they just say, I do use AI, and I look at the sample, it has that same AI voice. It's not the worst writing I've ever read, but it is all like it's written by the same person. So that is why I don't think at present this is really going to take. Even though some readers are currently reading and enjoying books that have had AI writing involved in them. And that's kind of the defense for the AI writers that they bring up. Like, well, people are reading some of them. People are buying them. But I think because they're all written in the same voice, people are going to start picking up on it more and more. And once they get that sense of like, oh, this is that same writer again, they're going to put the book down more and more. And while I'm on the subject, I might as well discuss some of my other current thoughts about the AI thing that came up in the last couple videos I've done about this topic. Before I get into all that, real quick, I want to tell you guys I am promoting InkersCon 2026 again this year from May 30th to June 12th. And if you're at a point where you're kind of getting serious about your writing, publishing, marketing, I really do recommend this conference. I have watched quite a number of the sessions myself. They have really good people. And I've been watching some of last year's sessions right now. I've been getting so pumped by them to get back to my writing and marketing. There's a lot of free advice. I give a lot of free advice here on YouTube, but what is really great about InkersCon is that you get a curated assemblage of professionals all in one place on different aspects of writing and marketing, which YouTube can only go so far. A lot of these kinds of people are too busy actually running their careers to be running YouTube channels as well. And you get 24 classes on writing, marketing, advertising, and business. There are also dozens of roundtable discussions and Q&As with different authors. This conference really gives you a lot of meat on the bone, and you're going to get a lot of actionable, fluff-free advice that you can refer back to for 6 years. I have paid more for conferences that did not give me as much as this one. I have a $50 off coupon code for you guys. Be sure to use the code CozyCreative26 when you sign up, and you'll get the entire conference for $199. It also really helps support the channel. If you went last year or if you go this year, I would love to know how it went for you. So before I continue talking about the AI topic again, let me just give the disclaimer, because every time I mention my complaints about AI writing, people defend that they're using it for other aspects of the writing process, like they're using Grammarly AI to correct their spelling or something. I am not talking about using AI as just like a tool. I'm not talking about using it for grammar. I'm not even talking about using it for brainstorming or research, although I have issues with those things. I also think there are contexts where they make sense to use AI. It just depends. So the aspect I'm really talking about here is actually generating passages of writing and putting them in your book without substantial editing to give it your own personal voice. I am also not here to judge AI in other businesses. I don't know anything about other businesses. I'm not saying there is no business context where AI doesn't make sense. I know it's the internet, so everyone has an opinion on everything, even if they barely know anything about it. But I really try not to be that person who starts weighing in on stuff I have no clue about the real intricacies of it. So I'm not talking about other businesses. I am mainly just talking about AI for actual writing. Now, I can't talk about AI without first bringing up the environmental impact again. That's probably the number one reason that I don't use AI at all. There are things about AI where sometimes I think, I could probably use AI and that this probably would be a context in which AI is useful. But I usually don't, in part because I don't trust or like the companies, and in other part because I'm very bothered by using anything that I know is harmful to our water supply, our happiness on the planet. I've seen plenty of reports about the data centers and how they make a ton of noise and light pollution and they're sucking up all the water, and it just sounds awful. And people are showing up en masse in local communities where they're trying to build data centers. And that is because they know it's going to ruin the area that the data center is put in. And as someone who's generally lived in somewhat rural America, they've been plopping a lot of these things in rural areas, and that makes me sad because these are beautiful places. And I think that's one of the things about the AI data centers that are particularly bothersome to people on an environmental level, because yes, I know like a lot of things we do are bad for the planet, but at the same time, like on a just personal moral level, this stuff bothers me. Also, it's the fact I think that the impact is not evenly spread. Like, I know that airplanes are very polluting, and the annoyance of airplanes, obviously, if you live under the flight path of an airport and you don't like noise pollution, it will bother you. I don't even mind the sound of airplanes. I could probably live under an airport, no problem. But I'm sure there was some point in American history where they were building all the airports and people were like, I don't want this airport built near my house. Now I gotta listen to airplanes all day. So data centers are kind of like building the airport, but they're even worse because airports are generally just noise. And I mean, there's some light, but if you're going to put an airport there, there's probably already light pollution everywhere because you're probably in a city. Data centers are going a lot of times in rural areas and blasting the night sky into smithereens and making noise in quiet places and using a ton of water. Their impact is just really hurting the place where they go. It's not evenly distributed among all of us, except that our power bills are going up. So I think that's one reason they've drawn particular ire. But for the rest of this video, I'm going to talk about AI. Environmental issues aside, I'm only going to talk about the actual, like, do I think we should be using this ever? Where is the line between using it like as a tool and using it to just make crap? The other argument that I've gotten a lot in favor of AI is that it's going to be like photography. Before photography, we just had paintings. If you wanted a portrait of yourself, you had to hire a painter. Then photography came along, and at first people thought that A, it was going to ruin painting, B, it was not really art, it was just snapping an image of what already existed. Eventually, of course, photography became acknowledged as its own art form. Is AI going to be like that? I mean, in the long run, I don't know how things might change, but presently I feel like no. Because the thing about photography is that it did something really different than what paintings could do, and it did it more cheaply and quickly and affordably so that middle class and even poor people could get photographic portrait, and it looked more like you than a painting could. I apologize that the neighborhood dogs really got going during this portion of the video. Nothing I can do about that.
But as I said, I live in a rural area, and the dogs get going sometimes.
Most people obviously were not going to be able to sit for a portrait and pay a painter to have an image of themselves. Photography really offered something that portrait painting did not. AI writing novels, on the other hand, does not really do anything better than people were already doing. And people were already doing it in great numbers, more than anybody needed. I myself have had years of churn where I was writing 10 books a year. For 4 years, I wrote 40 books in 4 years. And now I see people saying there's no way anyone who writes that fast could not be using AI, to which I say, I did. AI didn't exist. And I could have written even faster, probably. Like, if I'd been making more money and could have hired house cleaners and people to help with my ad management and marketing and all of that, I probably could have squeezed out another couple books a year. So we already had real people writing tons of books. AI comes along, it can write more bad books even faster, but we weren't really desperate for more bad books. We already have a lot of those. We already have more bad books than anybody could ever want or need to read. So it's not really offering anything that we need or want. There are areas in which it is actually a useful tool. For example, the one time that I have truly used AI is to clean up dictation. Before AI came along, it was extremely frustrating to me. Sometimes I have problems with my eyes and I have a hard time looking at screens. Sometimes for days or even weeks on end, I've had flare-ups with just burning, itching, watering eyes. So I'll dictate, but then I get to the problem of how to clean up the dictation without irritating my eyes, because the dictation is a mess and there really was no program that would clean it up well. I tried using Grammarly. I tried having one of my fans try to clean it up because she was offering if I needed any help with anything. She was like, this is a huge pain in the butt and I'm sorry, I don't want to do it anymore. And I was like, I don't blame you. It sucks. Pop that sucker in a chat bot and it cleans it up immediately and does a beautiful job. Puts all the punctuation in the right place. It formats it correctly. It doesn't need a lot of cleanup. What was an hour-long job to clean up, several thousand words can now be cleaned up in maybe 10 minutes. And the whole time I was struggling with this, I kept thinking, if only I knew how to write a simple program, because I know exactly what I need this to do. I know the mistakes are the things that dictation keeps leaving out. I know where the punctuation's probably going to need to go wherever you get a he said or she asked. I know we need quotation marks and commas. You can speak those things into dictation software, but that makes it take a lot longer, feel a lot less natural. There are also just some weird little typos or things it doesn't catch, and the chat bot was really good at catching those, so it was even better than a program I could have made. But nevertheless, in a lot of ways, it functioned as if I was simply able to create that program I was imagining. So AI kind of has this ability to become the simple program that you needed to collate information or clean up something or organize something for you. In that regard, it can be extremely useful. It does things better than a human can. That's why those kind of applications are working better for people than some of the more creative aspects that are just annoying the heck out of the populace. The other suggestion I keep getting is that eventually companies like Amazon are just going to cut out writers altogether. They're just going to put prompts into the AI. They're going to generate AI books, or they're going to have custom services where you just ask an AI bot to write a book for you. You tell it what it wants and it does it. I remain extremely, extremely skeptical of this. I'm sure that publishers probably are at times, for the sake of enshittification and cost savings, are going to use AI tools to maybe do some editing, maybe do some writing of book packaged products, which is sometimes publishers come up with an idea that they think is going to be hot and they hire a writer to write it for them. That's book packaging. And I can see AI being used by book packaging companies. But book packaging has still remained a small part of the industry because in most cases it's still better to have writers come to you with their own unique ideas and voice. If the whole industry was just book packaging, a lot of readers wouldn't be happy with that. But the biggest thing is that, trust me on this, readers do not know what they want. And part of the fun of experiencing art is being surprised. Everybody waiting for The Winds of Winter to come from George R. R. Martin, if it ever does. If the AI companies were like, hey, we could write Winds of Winter for you, does anyone believe that AI would be capable of writing a George R. R. Martin epic fantasy like anytime soon? Like cohering together all the character development and the plot twists and everything? It's nowhere near doing that. And the way that it currently works, I can't imagine that it will. Because it's just taking what we've written and like predicting what we're going to say and do. So AI is pretty predictable in what it's going to go for as far as plot twists or even the next sentence. It's not coming up with its own unique ideas. It's pulling from the catalog of everything that we've written, which it's very hard to take that kind of system and create a big epic fantasy that's going to surprise you. So, are you going to go in there and punch in like, well, here's what I think should happen in The Winds of Winter. I'm going to write an outline of it and see, then AI will create the book. That wouldn't be any fun. For one thing, you probably want to read Winds of Winter because you want to know what happens, not because you want to tell George R. R. Martin what happens. Even if you hate it, even if you hate what he does, you probably still just want to know, like, what was he going to do with it? And if you do hate it, you're already raring to discuss it with your friends who are going to read it too. You want to discuss, like, what worked, what didn't. Part of the fun is discussing things with other people. And if everyone's just writing their own outlines and putting them in AI and getting custom books, that whole aspect of art is gone. And just generally, people do not know what they want. Readers are always asking for things that they don't actually buy. It's almost like a joke how much reader groups will ask for things that sound like really wholesome. I just wish there was more romantasy that was like really feminist and, funny and well developed. And, for one thing, they ask for things that AI would be bad at because they're the things that are more complicated to write. And for another thing, a lot of times when you actually write the things that a lot of people are asking for, it doesn't sell. What people say they want and what people actually are compelled to purchase are not always the same. There's a reason we often have to do reading challenges in order to diversify our types of reading, the genres or the diversity of writers we're reading, and the wholesome quality of our books, how many classics or how many, nonfiction or whatever it is that you feel is like a little like, it's not like the first thing I want to read. You kind of have to tell yourself to read it, and then you don't always read it as much as you wanted to. There's a lot of issues with the idea of readers just, books being dead because readers are like, well, we're just going to tell AI what we want. I think that's mostly only going to work for like kinks, honestly. But even in romance, there is a thrill of discovery. So I think that it's going to be maybe a little subsection of mostly romance. That's my prediction. Or maybe like personalized book for your child or something like that, which we've also had for ages. The little gimmicky personalized books you can make for your kid where you plug their name in. I am worried about just on a broader level, I don't think that it's going to just take over the market. So those are my latest thoughts on all of this. I also recently watched a couple videos on like the witch hunts about like trying to figure out if authors are using AI and accusing them of using AI and wanting people to disclose whether they used AI. So I've been kind of mulling over some of the gray areas of that, of which there is a lot of gray area. Read with Cindy had a video about this like 7 months ago that I watched recently, and she was talking about someone she knew that was using AI as like a research partner. So they were writing a book set in like France, and they were just using AI the whole time to ask AI questions about like what hotel should they stay in and how do you say this in French. And that's exactly the kind of gray area that I think a lot of us might struggle with, because in that case, the AI is not writing the book for sure. If it's just used for research, a lot of actual creativity still has to go into it. But AI cannot really be trusted for research. And even if it could, like, it is getting better a little bit, I think, at the research aspect. So let's say we could trust it. Should we be using it though? This is the way that I've always done research for my books. If I know I'm going to set a book in like another place or inspired by another place, or if I'm going to write about someone where I don't have their lived experience, someone with a disability, for example, before I start to write, I read as much as I possibly can on the topic. I've spent a lot of time in university libraries doing deep dives into various places and situations, trying to immerse myself in like, what would this be like? I want to just feel it first before I even start writing the story. And then from there, I start actually writing the book. And that's where you come up with those little micro things that you need research for. I would definitely be very concerned about replacing that initial immersion stage with AI, because in that case, I want to see pictures. I want to hear people's actual lived experiences, memoirs. I want to feel it. I want to feel the human experience of being in this place or growing up in this culture or growing up in this situation. And then I want to draw from what is as close to living it as I can get. But then when you get to the smaller, little nitpicky things as you're going, like, okay, you researched, 18th century Paris, you got immersed in it, but now you're writing and you want to know the very particulars of like, what fabric would her underwear be? That is where maybe using AI would be okay sometimes, depending on how important this detail is. Is this like a make or break detail? Is this like the focus of your book? Or is this just kind of a little throwaway bit where if you do get it wrong because the AI got it wrong, it's not going to be the end of the world? I would feel a lot more comfortable using AI for some very little unimportant kind of research than I would for like, writing about someone with a disability, or like I'm writing a book about horseback riding and I'm looking up facts about horseback riding. Then it's going to be a little more a focal point than if I'm writing a book about horseback riding, but I have a question about the underwear. Or vice versa. If your character is a dressmaker, I'm going to want some real research books about dressmaking, but I can maybe ask AI about the horseback riding. I know some people are going to say that you should never, ever. You should always like actually go find a real person to ask about every little bit of language and knowledge. But especially if you're a fantasy writer and you're already a little bit like, well, this isn't quite the real world. So you know what? If I mess up, if I make their underwear cotton when it would have been linen, it's not going to end the world. Plus, even books can have misinformation in them too. It's not like AI is the only thing. There is a lot of historical inaccuracies in books that later historians have had to go back and be like, not everyone wearing corsets was being squeezed to death. Stuff like that. Everyone in the past wasn't completely filthy. There's been a lot of things where historians have had to kind of go back and be like, well, actually, a lot of the older books kind of didn't mention this or didn't really get into it like they should.
I did not quite say it explicitly, but I hopefully it's clear from context. But if you're talking about actual people's cultures, medical conditions, lived experiences of any kind, I think that doing real research and talking to real people is absolutely crucial. But if it's, like little historical details, that's not going to affect how any modern person is perceived. That's where I can, maybe see a case for using AI for small details. And I say this as somebody who once spent 45 minutes researching how they wash dishes in the 18th century to write one line. So that's the kind of time where I kind of think AI might have been a little useful for that. If I was so inclined. I happen to really love research. Like, I love it too much usually. Like so many fantasy authors who love world building. For the most part, I love research. But, throughout most of this video, I'm trying to speak objectively and fairly for like the pros and cons, despite my own personal hatred of AI. So, that's where I'm at with this stuff. I'm sure I'll still get a lot of bitchy comments, but I still think this conversation is worth continuing to have, even though it can be really uncomfortable with a lot of disagreement, because it is having a big impact on the industry, and it's going to continue to evolve, and it's going to continue to impact a lot of things. So here we are.
But this is what I'm talking about with gray areas. This is the kind of stuff that I do think is up for some legitimate debate, because this is not just like I'm writing whole book with AI. This is using AI as a tool, and this is questioning, when is it a good tool? So those are my current thoughts on all of that. Drop all your opinions in the comments, and we'll continue to talk about this because it's not going away. You know, what can you do? If you're new to this channel, my name is Lydia Foxglove, and I have been pretty much a full-time author since 2009. And on this channel, I talk about the creative life in general and the writing life in particular. So if that sounds good to you, stick around.
And don't forget to check out InkersCon.
If you like more from me, my members get 2 bonus videos per month voted on by you guys. And I also have a periodic newsletter for everyone, whether you're a paid member or not. If you'd like to read any of my books, my Hidden Lands books are the ones I always recommend first, but I have a number of books because I once wrote 40 books in 4 years, like a robot. I post every Sunday and sometimes also midweek, and I thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye. Okay, here we go, here we go, here we go.